What up, Frazier? All right, everybody, day 9. We're going to step into a little bit of GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. Let's go ahead and jump into it. There is a lot of reading, and we're not going to go through all the reading. I'm just going to do my best to kind of give you a 10,000 foot view of what GRC is, and then we'll do the task. Never thought you'd hear me say what? GRC? All right. So today is day 9, 9 o'clock. Make GRC fun. Tell no one. And as the story continues, we see that McSkitty and Glitch want to hire an e-discovery company to process some forensic data for their investigation. They have invited bids from third parties for this purpose. 3 companies have put in a bid for these projects. McSkitty and Glitch now need to do a risk assessment for all 3 of these companies to identify which one has the least risk when it comes to dealing with their data. So all 3 companies are required to fill out a questionnaire based on which of the all 3 companies were required to fill out a questionnaire based on which a risk assessment will be done. Let's see, some of the way they write this is a little weird. Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to send them a big long spreadsheet. They're going to have to fill out that spreadsheet. That spreadsheet's going to go back to them, and then it's going to give them a score. And that's what we're going to look at tonight. So let's slide on down. What is governance, risk, and compliance? So GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance, plays a crucial role in the organization. It does ensure security practices are aligned with personal, regulatory, and legal obligations. Let's go ahead and slide down. Basically, they break down some of these. So some may know of one of these 3, but the first one is the reserve bank regulation. So in most countries, banks have to adhere to the security regulations set forth by the country's reserve bank. Some of you may have heard of the SWIFT CSP. Banks use a network within, so it's basically a banking network that connects all of them together. The banks use the SWIFT network to communicate with each other. There was a massive, you can go look it up. Man, what was it? Bangladesh, I believe, is the Bangladesh heist. Go look that up. And there's actually something on YouTube about that, the Bangladesh heist. They tried to get over $1 billion. They only ended up getting up 81 million out of the SWIFT fraudulent transfer. It's a very interesting story of how it happened. So go check that out. This is data protection. As banks hold sensitive information about their customers, they have to adhere to security standards created by their data regulator, usually the Reserve Bank. So what in the world is this thing we call governance? So governance is a function that creates standards for the actual company in itself, right? We go create those standards, we create those policies, we put in practices. So we'll go write those policies and put them in place and say, hey, you need to follow these policies. So like, for instance, we have a policy of everybody has to have MFA on, right? And that's a policy or a standard within the company. If you don't have it on, you get slapped on the hand. Basically what happens is you can have somebody, a governance, risk, and compliance audit come in. They look at your policies and they say, hey, everybody in the company is supposed to be using MFA. We found that they are not. We found that these 10 people over here do not have MFA turned on. Why don't they have these MFA turned on? And if those don't have MFA turned on, you have the ability to have exceptions as long as they're put within that policy, right? You can create an exceptions policy that would lead back out. Risk is just what it sounds like. So the risk is the risk for what the company is doing. So as it states on here, risk is the function that helps identify the assets, quantify and mitigate the risk of the organization's IT assets. So we'll look at the specific assets that the company has and then give a risk number to that. So for instance, what's the risk of going out and spending $2,000 on a laptop, or let's say a laptop costs $2,000? Where's our risk when it comes to how many of those laptops are going to bite the bullet within that first year? There's a specific formula for that. You take those laptops, so they're $2,000. Say we bought 10 of those, now we're $20,000, and then we say, okay, those laptops are $20,000 for those. Within that first year, what's the percentage of laptops that are going to die? And let's say it's 1%. So at 1%, and we're going to push those laptops over 5 years, right? So you've got to divide 20,000 by 5. So you're at $4,000 a year. There's a whole big long equation that goes into all this. But then what that does is it breaks it down and says, hey, if you don't buy insurance on these laptops and a laptop died, it was going to cost you $100. Is it worth buying insurance or not? So we can get into that. We can have a full stream about all the risks and assessments and so forth. So compliance, we've got HIPAA compliance, we've got PCI DSS compliance. There's tons and tons of different compliances. You can look at SOC 2 compliance, ISO 27001 compliance. Basically what this says is compliance is the function that ensures the organization adheres to all external legal, regulatory, and industry standards. For example, adhering to GDPR. GDPR is in Europe. That's one of the reasons why this is probably on here. But it's a big deal over in Europe. It's also a big deal here, depending on if you actually work with European companies and if you're storing or using European data. So let's look what we've got here. Introduction to risk assessments. So as it relates to a risk assessment, like they said before when we started off, you have usually what you get as a company. Somebody will send you a risk assessment. Usually it's a 40-page Excel spreadsheet that's got like either all of ISO 27001, and you've got to go through each individual part of ISO 27001. Are you doing this? Are you not doing this? Same thing. Maybe it's NIST, maybe it's CIS 18, but what we're looking at is basically, are you following these models? Are you following these frameworks? Yes or no? Where you're following it, and then at the end of it, once all is said and done, that goes back to whoever's doing the evaluation. Once they get that evaluation, they put it all together and they go, all right, they are, a 3 out of 5 or a 2 out of 5. That's basically what the risk assessment is. So why are risk assessments done? I kind of just went over that. Let's see, risk assessments are a reality check to the business. That's basically what it is. Basically says, hey, look, you think you're a 5, but we guarantee you're not. You're probably more like a 1.5. Imagine you run an online store that collects customer information like names, addresses, credit card. If the data gets stolen because of weak security, it's not just the data that's at risk. It's your reputation, it's your customers' trust, and even your profits are on the line. For McSkitty and Glitch, assessing the risk of each e-discovery company helps them decide which one is less likely to have a data breach or issues that could disrupt the investigation. So this is going to go through, I think this is talking about the actual risk assessment in itself and how you kind of figured out, yeah, here we go. They're basically showing us a big old spreadsheet. You can see on here an unpatched web server. The web server has not been patched in at least 4 months. When it was last updated, the likelihood of this happening, what's the impact of it, what's the risk score, and who owns it, right? So when we look at risk assessment within a company, we're also looking at who's the actual owner. IT does not own all the software in the company, right? For the most part, IT is what you call a custodian. They're the custodians of the software, meaning they help keep it up and running, they help keep the servers up and running, but they don't necessarily own that software, all right? When it comes to like accounting software, the accounting group is the one that's dealing with the software all day. It's not IT. But IT is running the servers that have the software, or if it's a SaaS product, maybe they're the ones that they're intermediary between the two of them. Can't talk tonight. Maybe they're the intermediary between the two because they do understand technology versus maybe the people in accounting don't understand the technology, and that way they can kind of facilitate what's going on. Identifications of risk. So we've got it on here. We've got an unpatched server, high privileged user accounts with proper security controls, a third-party vendor who might be infected by malware connecting to your organization's network. That's another big risk. What is open, what's not open. A system for which support has ended by the vendor. All right, they're going to go in here, and we kind of what we really need to do is we kind of need to read this part, because as we get into it, the numbers that TryHackMe has, we're going to kind of fall into this. They will be. What you need to realize is a lot of this is subjective, right? And a lot of it boils around to what you call a BIA, or business impact analysis. You want to do that. You have, what's the impact if this were to happen to the business, right? You have to get with the business themselves and decide, hey, if you lose access to this software, what is the impact? What's the impact on our accounting software going down? What's the impact of our HR stuff going down? Rate it from 1 to 5. You, as the analyst or the person doing the GRC, cannot say, oh, it's a 5. Oh, it's a 3. You want to hear from them. And then the longer you do this, the better you'll understand. So if you go to company A and then company B and then company C, by you get to company D, you can understand kind of where it's at. And when they go, oh, I think it's about a 2. In reality, you know that since you've done so many over the last 3 or 4 of these, this really isn't a 2. It's probably more like a 4. So let's look at our scale here, our range. To quantify risk, we need to identify how likely or probable it is that the risk will materialize. We can then assign a number to quantify this likelihood. The number is often on a scale of 1 to 5. The exact scale differs from organization to organization and the framework to framework. The likelihood can also be called the probability of materialization of risk. So we've got 5 different in here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, improbable. 2, remote. 3, occasional. 4, probable. And then 5 is going to be frequently. What's up, Chris Cahaw? I see Rhonda's in here. Brandon Maverick's in the house again. I see Chris Whitlock on both streams. I see Agent 57 over on Twitch. And then we got the Beard and Fraser over there as well. All right, it might be noticed that while we're trying to quantify the risk, we still don't define exact quantities of what constitutes several times and what constitutes regular. That's the big thing, right? So depending company to company to company depends on what constitutes that this is going to happen several times a year versus one time a year, or what is it? Is several times a year normal? And we want to make sure that it stays within that range, or is several times a year not normal, and we need to make sure that that's high, right? That's where you have to pull the business in to understand. The reason the likelihood for a server, which has a very high uptime requirements, will be different from a server that has that's used infrequently. Therefore, the likelihood scale will differ from case to case and from asset to asset. On the flip side, we can see that the scale provides us with a very usable scale to differentiate between different probabilities of occurrence of an event. So now we got assigning impact, and that follows in the same type of direction that our realization is, or our risk score. Once we've identified the risks and the likelihood of the risk, the next step is to quantify the impact, right? For example, if there is a public-facing web server that's unpatched and gets breached, what will be the impact of the organization? Different organizations calculate impacts in different ways. Some organizations might use CVSS scoring to calculate the impact of the risk. Others might use their own derived from the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the CIA triad of certain assets. And others may base their severity categorization of the incidents, and others might base it on the severity of the category. Okay. Some to similar to likelihood, we also quantify impact on a scale of 1 to 5. And here's the example. So we've got our examples of what 1 to 5 is. 1, informational, basically means not a big deal. Low means that, hey, it's going to impact something, but we're not really worried about it. 3, it's going to be in the middle, depending on what it is. Maybe it's a major loss, maybe not. Not really worried about it, but it's getting higher up there. 4 is going to be our high impact. So that's impacting several parts of the organization, causing significant revenue loss. And then critical, basically, all hell's broken loose and everything's on fire. That poses existential threat to the organization. So risk ownership, I kind of talked about this already. Risk ownership can be an individual, it can be a group of people. The last step is performing a risk assessment, is to decide what to do with the risks that were found. We can start by performing some calculations on the risk itself. The simplest calculation takes the likelihood of the risk and multiplies it by the impact of the risk to get the score. Some risk registers make use of more advanced systems like DREAD. Assigning scores to the risk helps organizations prioritize which risk should be done immediately or remediated first. So usually when you get this score, you're going to find out top to bottom, hey, here is the lowest, here's what you have, and it's the lowest score. And when you're doing a risk assessment, you want your score to be at the bottom, right? But if you have something that's like a 5 in risk assessment, a 5 in I can't think of it right now. So a 5 in impact and a 5 in the actual likelihood, then you got a risk of 10 between those two, right? But you want to bring that down. So then maybe you have something that's only got a risk of 2. So you're only worrying about the highs, and then you worry about the lows later, right? Work from the top down. So internal and third-party risk assessments, these can both be done. Internal, what we're basically talking about is a business impact with an internal risk assessment. Risk assessments are not just done internally in an organization, but they can be used to assess the risks that the third party may hold to the organization. So today, it is very common to make use of third party outside the organization for key functions of our business. For example, small organizations may outsource financial divisions. Exactly, that's what we were talking about a minute ago. Large organizations may outsource development, maybe not put everybody on staff, maybe they have a software engineering firm. However, this changes the risks as the compromise of a third party where we may not have full control of their security. So let's think about that real quick. If we actually outsourced, let's say we're outsourcing all of our software engineering, it's to a third party, and that third party's engineering stuff, and they have access to our servers, right? We have to give them access so they can write the code, put the code on there, send the code over, make sure that the web page is working or whatnot. If that company got compromised, and if that company has access to your system, who's to say that the people that got compromised can't jump from their systems into yours? Third-party risk. We can go into the whole SolarWinds thing. SolarWinds had the same issue, right? Third-party risk. People that had SolarWinds had nothing to do with the SolarWinds hack. SolarWinds gets hacked, but then everybody that downstream from SolarWinds had issues, right? All right, so let's see. Why do companies do internal risk? Internal risk assessments help companies understand the risk that they have with their own walls or within their own walls. For example, if a company finds that the software is outdated, it can prioritize updating to prevent potential attacks. We can identify weak spots in security. We can direct resources to the most important areas, which we kind of already talked about before, right? If we've got a 2 and a 10, we want to go take care of that 10 first. Why do companies do risk assessments for third parties? So this is becoming bigger and bigger because everybody is using third-party applications. We're all using SaaS, we're all using PaaS, we're all using IaaS, everybody's using stuff that is no longer really on-prem. Everybody's using stuff that's in the cloud. That's a third party and that's a risk. So companies don't just assess themselves, they also need to evaluate the risk that come from working with other companies like vendors, suppliers, partners. This is also called a third-party risk assessment, and is important because one weak link in the chain can affect everyone. Kind of what I talked about with SolarWinds. So let's make it simple for McSkitty and Glitch. They want to make sure that whichever e-discovery company they choose won't leak or lose sensitive data, so they will be reviewing all of these companies. They need to have good security measures, right? They need to keep our data safe. They need to follow data protection rules. And then the third part, they need to align with the security standards that McSkitty and Glitch have in place. So usually with your third-party risk, whatever standards you have in place within your company, the third party needs to either meet or exceed those risks. Or not exceed the risk, but meet or exceed those standards, right? So they can either be as good or better, but if they're worse, that's where we have problems. MoveIt was third-party risk as well. That's right. There's been a lot of third-party risk. We've seen some lately. MoveIt was big. All right, by doing third-party risk assessment, McSkitty and Glitch are reducing potential supply chain risk. Make sure that the investigation doesn't run into trouble because of a weak security link in the chain. In order to do this, McSkitty has created a risk assessment that can be sent to the potential third parties. Based on the answers provided to the third parties, McSkitty can then make an informed decision. Let me go ahead and click on here because I think it's going to shoot us all the way down at the bottom. Yep. Probably should have already had that up to begin with. I don't know why TryHackMe does that. When you click on to start the box, it like shoots you all the way back up to the top. All right, so let's put this knowledge to the test. Let's start the static site, which we've already done. You will have to assess the risk level of each of these vendors, or each of these vendors' PFOs. We sent a questionnaire to each third-party vendor, and we have received their answers. Using the answers below, you will need to add the risks to the register, which will give a overall score for each third party. Once this is done, we can choose which third party has the lowest risk. All right, so here's our instructions. You'll be assessing the 3 vendors. Number 1, review the vendor's response. Number 2, identify potential risks based on their responses and add them to the risk register. Number 3, for each risk, provide a clear description of the risk. Rate the impact. 1 to 4. Okay, they're only given a 1 to 4 scale. Awesome. Rate the likelihood 1 to 4. The risk score is automatically calculated by multiplying the impact times the likelihood. The vendor risk score is the sum of the risk score for the vendor. Your goal is to identify the vendor. All right, here we go. We got it. All right, so vendor number 1 is Emerald Griffin. Looks like vendor number 2 is Jade Lion. And then vendor number 3 is the Platinum Dragon. So let's look at vendor number 1 and let's check out our risk register. So they've completed our risk register. Now we've got to go in and decide what is going on here. So question 1 says, data in transit and data at rest needs to be encrypted with AES encryption as a requirement for this project. What type of AES encryption does your company use for data in transit and data at rest? So it looks like, who was this first one? Emerald Griffin. So it looks like Emerald Griffin's question or answer to number 1 is that they do use they do use AES 256 for data in transit, meaning they're probably using TLS or something along those lines to move stuff across, right? But what they are telling you is when that data is actually sitting on the server, it's not encrypted. So if we actually had if somebody went into their data center and grabbed that thing and walked out with it, they could get all of our data. Not good. All right. So let's look at this. Describe the potential risk. So data at rest, not encrypted. Get R if they have access, if they have physical access. All right. Man, cannot type, can't see. All right, so what's the impact of this? I would say the impact of this could be pretty high, right? If somebody actually got our data and was able to see everything, that could be a significant impact, meaning we've given our data over to them, it moves in transit, and it's encrypted, but as soon as it's sitting on there, it's not encrypted. You know what that means? That means somebody can see what it is. Somebody got it, somebody can leak it, get rid of it. So we'll say that it's a, let's say, significant impact. What's the possibility of it? The possibility of somebody actually going in and stealing our physical, I would say possible. Not unlikely, but it's not possible. Let's see what we get here. Oh, perfect assessment. Snap. FYI, this was something we actually had to do for CISSP. Had to understand and learn risk registers. All right, let's go back to question 2. All right, what kind of controls do you have to ensure data is accessed only by authorized people? The vendor's response: data can be accessed by all the people on the relevant team. Okay, so let's think about that answer. So if it can be accessed by all people on the relevant team, does that mean everybody on that team needs to have access to it? Or shouldn't just the individuals working with it need access to it? Because the team could be, we're talking about a third-party team. Say if there's 10 people on that team, do all 10 people need access, or maybe only 4 people that are actually working on our stuff? Let's see here. So data can be accessed by all people. I'm going to say that this one's likely and high. Because anybody, that means anybody there can access it, meaning that that's a significant impact. And the likelihood of it happening could probably be high as well, because anybody has access to it, anybody on there. There's not, controls aren't put in place for only those that need privilege. Let's see. All individuals do not need access to the data. Only those working on our case. I think we can probably just put whatever we want to in there. It'll probably be all right. Let's see what this is. All right, it says it's a good assessment. Your assessment indicates higher risk than expected. So higher risk, so maybe we have a higher impact or a higher likelihood. So we said high and high, so let's say moderate, or you know what, let's say high and possible. Is it gonna make me type everything? Ugh, come on, you made me type everything back in again? Oh no, sorry. I think we need to edit this. There we go. So we have high and likely. So let's say significant impact is high and it's possible. Your assessment indicates a lower... What the heck? So is it going to be critical and possible? What are they? See how I'm saying that this is subjective? All right, now it's saying that that's a perfect assessment. So what they're saying for us is that they believe that it's a critical impact, which I could understand. It's going to be critical if somebody actually does get our data, but the possibility of it probably not. It's not necessarily unlikely, but it could occur. All right, let's look at question number 3. How long do you keep client data after the case is closed? More than 1 month? That's not good. Not good at all. So that's a big impact level. And I would even say that the response of this, I'm gonna go with this. So data should only be kept as long as it's needed. Data should only be kept as long as it's needed. All right, so I've got the impact as high and the likelihood as 3. They're saying that it indicates low, so you know what they're saying? They're saying this is 100% all the way to the top. Take it to the top. They're saying both. That it's likely that something's going to happen and it's a critical impact. So let's go ahead and hit add, and we should be... All right, we've got perfect assessment for... This is our group, so now we've got what? 16... We'll complete that assessment. Now let's look at the Jade Lion. Same question, question 1. We already read the question. Let's go ahead and look at the vendor. So the vendor basically is telling us this vendor doesn't have it. Oh, lovely. Best viewers follow exchange. Awesome. Hold on a second. Let's get rid of them bots. It's always fun when you get hit by bots on a live stream. Yo ho ho and a Hopefully everybody sees. I know I've got my big head over in the corner there. Oh, it looks like they've already run out. Customary element. All right, well, I'll grab that one in a little bit. All right, so we're at we're at user. So back to this question 1. Basically, we've already done the question. For us, we want encryption. We need encryption at rest. We also need encryption in transit. Looks like this company has it in rest, but not in transit. So it looks like we're going to be probably in the same area. All data should be encrypted in transit. Otherwise, it can be compromised, meaning otherwise it can... Let's do... No, CIA triad. We could have issues within our CIA triad of confidentiality. They may be able to see it. Integrity. They may be able to get in the middle of it and change some of the data that's being moved. The availability, 100%. The availability. They could stop it and have it go somewhere else. All right. So what is the impact level of this? I would say that it is going to be high. And I'm sure they're probably going to say that it's likely. Let's see what our risk register is. Perfect assessment. All right. We've been perfect on number 1s. All right. Number 2. So it says data can be accessed only on a need-to-know basis. Perfect. That's what we want, right? We only want need-to-know basis. We only want the people that are going to be doing it to do it, and that's it. So this is what we want to see. The impact level should be low. The likelihood would be I would say that this is both low. This is what we want to see. Only on having access. Perfect. Oh, tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm right. That should be low and low. Oh, assessment could be improved. Your assessment indicates... All right, so what are they... Data can only be accessed on a need-to-know basis. So the likelihood of the data being accessed by somebody else should be rare. it should, I mean, the impact level should not be there. Your assessment indicates lower risk, still lower risk. I guess they're just, I guess what they really want to say is that the impact level of somebody getting it is going to be high no matter what. But the likelihood is going to be unlikely because only certain people have it. Okay. Possible? I guess it's still possible because somebody that does have access. Your assessment indicates a higher risk now. Jeez. So are we moderate possible? What are we? The score's correct, but the impact and likelihood need to be adjusted. So our impact score should be 4. So like what are we looking at here? I'm so lost. It's saying that the impact score needs to be 4. Who's done this? Who got this right? So, what kind of access controls do you ensure? We've got that. The data can be processed only on a need-to-know basis, or it can be accessed on a need-to-know basis. Got it. Now they're saying that the likelihood. So this is a 2, and this is a 2, and they said that that was correct. Maybe it's this. There we go. Okay. So they're still 100% on the it's a critical impact if it gets it. Got it. Question 3. How long do you keep client data? 1 to 2 weeks. That could be a critical impact. Keeping data longer than needed provides unwanted risk. All right. I'd say it's possible. I'd actually say high and possible. Your assessment is lower. Man, do they like want everything critical when it comes to the data? Yep. They want everything critical when it comes to data. That's interesting. All right, so we're done with this assessment. We've done questions 1, 2, and 3. Perfect assessments. And we'll complete that assessment for Jade Lion. And now we've got the Platinum Dragon. All right, Platinum Dragon. What do we got for you? Oh, amazing. All right, so we have data at rest and data in transit. Both are encrypted. We're still going to say, because we continue to see that they want this severe and critical, all data is encrypted in all areas. I would say the likelihood is going to be low since everything is encrypted. Let's see if that's what they want. Good assessment indicates higher. Oh, these people are killing me. It's got to be high then. There we go. All right. This is like a whack-a-mole game right now. All right. Data can be accessed by all the people in the organization. Well, that's not good at all. All right. Data can be accessed by all the people. That is critical, and that is very likely. So, only people working on our case should have access to our data. That's got to be a 4 and a 4, right? If that's not 4 and 4, all right. I was gonna say, woo. All right, what's number 3? How long do you keep client data? 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, well that's gonna be pretty much the same thing. We're gonna say that it's a high impact, or no, we said critical, impossible. Data should only be kept as long as needed. We're gonna say critical, and then that's gonna be possible. And that's a perfect one. All right. See, we're getting by the end. Look, we were able to knock them all out. All right, let's go ahead and hit complete the assessment. And let's look at ours. So there's our, all right, I'm like, where's my thing here? All right. So here we go. Platinum Dragon is a 27. Jade Lion is a 21. Oh, and Emerald Griffin is a 30. So, per our scores, the company that we would want to deal with here is going to be Old Jade Lion. There we go. So let's copy this over. Let's throw our flag in here. That's pretty much, that's our flag. And then it says, what does GRC stand for? And we saw that earlier. That's for governance, risk, and compliance. Comma, risk. And compliance. All right. We're going to do a copy and paste because it's going to want specific things in here. You know, that's one thing I would say. Well, let's do this. Let me delete everything that's in there. How did they have it? Comma, risk. Is that all? Yeah. Alright, there we go. Joseph's in the house! And we're done. So, if we enjoyed this room, check out the risk management room. We'll go ahead and close this. So, it's a fun little task. Basically, what we talked about before. Let me go ahead and clear the split screen. And there's a big old head of Dr. Gerald Auger, which we will see again tomorrow. But yeah, let me slide on over here. Quick and easy room. Basically the last two days have been quick and easy. So yesterday we talked about how we can actually pop a shell, right? We looked at that, which seems like we're going to probably have some red team stuff coming down. But today we looked at governance, risk, and compliance. And when it comes to making sure that we're following standards, that we have compliance in place, that we understand the risk as a company, you have to insert governance, risk, and you have to do something with GRC. You need to have policies, you have to have procedures in place. Otherwise, you're just running wild. All right? Oh, yeah. I agree with that. Christopher Cahill says, I have the same thing when writing scripts. We'll just have a missing something like a white space or something. You know what? So when you're doing what is it? When you're doing JSON and your tabs are off or your spaces are off and you can't figure out where the hell it's at, and one of them has one space off versus I remember having to deal with JSON and I was like, that was the most frustrating thing ever. Ooh. Yeah, but see, I did mine live. I didn't do mine and have it all chopped up. His was all chopped up in 41 minutes long. So, take that to the bank. All right. What time is it? I'm looking 7:44. All right, not too bad. We've been doing around 40 to 45 minutes every single night, so we should be good. That's going to be it for tonight. We'll see what we have in store for tomorrow. I heard something about more red team coming, so hopefully we'll see more red team. Oh man, Python and PowerShell do that too. I have my Python. I've had it in my Python in a sea of red. Oh yeah, because of one white space. For sure. Nothing like being already go and hit that enter button, and then all of a sudden all you see is red in your PowerShell script, right? You're like, son of a... And then you're missing like a comma somewhere. You know what though? That's what ChatGPT is there for now. You can copy all that red, throw it in ChatGPT and say, what the hell does this mean? And then it'll be like, hey, you need to put a comma right here. And then it'll work. Hey, this is a great song. The Day Before Christmas. That would have been good if it was on the 24th. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pop on out of here like I'm popping a shell over. Go hang out with the family. Have some fun. Go watch a show or something. I've been behind this desk since 6 o'clock this morning. So it's been a long day. All right. Hopefully everybody has a great night. I'll see you guys in the morning for the Daily Cyber Brief, 7 a.m. And that's it for me. See you guys. I'm out of here. Y'all have a great night. Woosah.